Russia is advancing on the ground faster than at any other point in 2025. On paper, that should be cause for celebration in the Kremlin, right? Progress, territory, victory. But the truth behind those red arrows on the map tells a very different story. Because there's a cost, a brutal one. And once you understand that cost, you'll see why these so-called advances are actually destroying Russia faster than any battlefield defeat. Let's start with the basics. The maps aren't lying. Russia really is moving forward. But the real question is, how much is it actually gaining? Back in 2022, at the start of the war, Russian forces controlled over 25% of Ukrainian territory. It happened quickly. It was massive. Tanks rolled in. Ukraine was caught off guard, and Putin likely believed victory was close. Then Ukraine regrouped. It launched its first major counteroffensive. And since then, Russia's control has dropped to around 20%, less than it held 3 years ago. Think about that. 3. Almost 4 years of war, hundreds of thousands of troops mobilized. And today, Russia holds less ground than at the beginning. But wait, what about the so-called Great Summer Offensive of 2025 everyone talked about? That was supposed to be the turning point. Exactly. Let's talk about it. Putin launched what was meant to be Russia's biggest operation since the war began. More than 100,000 soldiers concentrated on one goal, capturing Thesity of Pokers in the Donetsk region, 100,000 troops, an entire army for one target. And the result? Pokersk is still in Ukrainian hands. And it wasn't just Pokersk. Russia launched massive assaults across multiple fronts. Kherson-Kupiansk, the entire line of contact. Yet here's the detail most overlook. Since October 2022, Russia hasn't captured a single major city. Not one. The strongholds that really matter, the so-called Donetsk fortress belt, cities like Slovansk, Kramatorsk, and Dushka remain under Ukrainian control. These interconnected cities give Ukraine its defensive backbone. They serve as fortified positions, supply hubs, and staging points for counterattacks. And after 3 years of fighting, Russia hasn't taken a single one. So, if they're advancing, what exactly are they capturing? Here's where things get interesting. Look closely at the areas Russia has gained, and a clear pattern emerges. Destroyed farmland, abandoned villages, craters where streets use tobe. Land that holds no real military value. And here's the key detail. Ukraine often chooses to pull back. These aren't chaotic retreats. They're tactical withdrawals. Not because the land can't be defended, but because it simply isn't worth the lives it would cost to hold it. Think about the logic. You've got open ground with no cover, completely exposed to drones and artillery. Defending it would mean sending soldiers into a kill zone. Ukraine falls back to fortified positions, lets Russia move into that exposed area, and then pounds them with artillery and drones once they try to hold it. That's been the repeated pattern along the entire front. But the most revealing part of this offensive comes down to one number, a figure that exposes how unsustainable Russia's strategy really is. 124. That's the average number of Russian soldiers killed for every single square kilometer gained during the spring and summer offensive of 2025. Let that sink in. Picture a football field. Now imagine 124 dead soldiers just to claim that speed has only to call it a victory. And these aren't cities or strategic locations. They're empty fields and ghost villages. This isn't war. It's a meat grinder. And the total numbers are even more shocking. Since the start of 2025, Russia has lost around 210,000 troops in just 3 regions, Kharkiv, Luhansk, and Donetsk. In May and June alone, roughly 31,000 Russian soldiers were killed. By August, another 28,000 had become casualties, either dead or wounded. Those are heavy numbers. But the comparison that really matters, Theon, that changes the whole idea of who's winning is this: 5-1. For every Ukrainian soldier killed, 5 Russian soldiers die. That's not a guess. It comes from cross-checking. Multiple verified sources, open data, field reports, and independent military analyses. Ukraine has lost at least 77,000 soldiers since the start of the full-scale invasion. A devastating number, but Russian losses roughly 5 times higher. And that's being cautious. Some estimates put total Russian casualties, both dead and wounded, at over 1 million. So why is this happening? How can a larger army with more tanks, more men, and more resources be losing 5 times as many soldiers? The answer lies in how they fight. Russia's approach looks more like World War I than modern warfare. Small units of men are sent sprinting across open terrain, what the military calls the kill zone, fully exposed to drones, artillery, and gunfire. The hope is that a few survive long enough to hold ground before the next wave is sent in. That's the Russian way. Meanwhile, Ukraine is fighting a 21st century war. Constant drone surveillance, precision strikes, and patience. A lot of patience. Ukraine watches, waits, and when Russian troops start gathering or moving into open terrain, they're wiped out before they can even dig in. Here's a crucial fact. In modern warfare, where drones monitor every square meter of the battlefield around the clock, massing troops near the front line is almost suicide. You can't move thousands of soldiers and tanks without being instantly detected and targeted. That's why Russia's advances crawl forward at a snail's pace meter by meter, leaving behind staggering losses. And it's why a sweeping, game-changing offensive is nearly impossible under these conditions. But while the world's attention stays fixed on a few small reed arrows creeping across the map, another war is happening. A quieter, deadlier one that may decide the real outcome. October 21st, 2025, more than 250 kilometers inside Russia, far from any front line, the night sky erupts in flames. The target, a chemical plant in Bryansk, known as the Bryansk plant. It produced gunpowder, explosives, and rocket fuel, the lifeblood of Russia's weapons industry. That night, Ukraine destroyed it with Storm Shadow cruise missiles, long-range weapons, supplied by the UK and France, finally authorized for use inside Russian territory.